Welcome to boring history for sleep, where history moves slowly and the past drifts by softly enough to fall asleep too. Tonight, we return to the sands of ancient Egypt, but not the dazzling Egypt of gold masks and towering pyramids. Instead, the quieter, harder truth beneath it all. In this short, calming journey of under 20 minutes, you'll walk beside the laborers who built the pyramids with aching hands and sand-filled sandals. You'll feel the hush that followed the strange disappearance of a heretic king. And through it all, the rhythm of ancient life continues, steady, dusty, and slow. This isn't a tale of pharaohs at their peak. It's about the lives behind the limestone, the long days, the small comforts, and the quiet mysteries of a world buried beneath time. So, dim the lights, settle in, and let's begin. Imagine the first light of dawn filtering through a cloudless Egyptian sky. You wake not in a palace, not in a temple, but in a shared mud-brick dormitory near the edge of the construction site. Your body is sore from yesterday, as it is every day. The linen cloth you wear is stiff with dust and sweat, and before you even rise, you already know what the day will bring: heat, weight, repetition. You are not a slave. Not exactly. You are a conscripted worker, summoned by the state for a labor season. You might be a farmer in another life, but during the inundation season, when the Nile floods your fields, the pharaoh requires your body. It's your tax in labor. So you've come here, to the base of a great pyramid rising in the desert, to pull stones beneath the sun. Breakfast is basic: a piece of bread, coarse and slightly sour, a few onions, perhaps a small jug of beer, not strong, but thick and grainy, more like porridge than drink. It keeps your belly from aching and gives you the energy to begin. The work is grueling. You and dozens of others grip ropes, guiding massive limestone blocks up wooden sleds. The ramps creak beneath the weight. Your hands blister despite the wrappings. The foreman shouts instructions, but the rhythm is set by you and the others. A chant, a heave, a step. You move in unison. You breathe in dust. Sand clings to everything: your face, your food, the folds of your tunic, your skin rubbed raw where it gathers. The sun climbs quickly. There is no shade. Your break, when it comes, is short. A few more onions, maybe garlic, if you're lucky. These are not delicacies. They are fuel, and they're considered valuable enough that disputes over spoiled rations sometimes turn violent. A few clay jars of water are passed around. You drink sparingly. Too much and you'll cramp. Too little and the sun will claim you. The hours blend. You lose track of time. The sound of stone scraping over wood, of voices calling out, of your own breath, they fill your ears. Sometimes you look up and see the pyramid looming, impossibly large, and feel both pride and despair. This will outlast you, outlast your children, but you will not be remembered. Injuries are common: a crushed foot, a pulled muscle, a fall from a ramp. There's some medical aid, salves, poultices, a healer with simple tools, but there's no luxury of rest. The work continues. Always. Evenings offer little relief. You eat in a communal space. The air smells of sweat, yeast, and old stone. There may be singing, sometimes dancing. There is a kind of brotherhood here, born of shared fatigue. Stories pass around the fire, of gods, of home, of what lies inside the tombs you're helping to seal. You laugh. You chew the last of your rations. You try to forget that tomorrow will be the same, and the day after, and the day after that. At night, the desert grows cold. You sleep on woven mats, with your arm as your pillow, sand gritting in your teeth. If you dream, it's of water, or of your fields back home, or of your wife's voice. But morning always returns, and with it the endless stones. The irony is not lost on you. You build a monument to immortality, knowing your name will fade with the wind. You carve a legacy for someone else, someone divine, while your own legacy is a sore back and worn hands. And yet, there is meaning in the rhythm. There is something almost sacred in the toil. You are part of something vast, a machine of men and stone and sun. Your labor lifts a god's tomb higher. Your breath helps build eternity. In this segment, we do not imagine the glory of pyramids. We feel the burden behind them. We walk in the footprints left at the base, and we sit quietly beside those who gave their bodies so that a king might rise into the stars. Imagine standing beneath the blazing Egyptian sun, not at the foot of a pyramid, but in a strange city that almost shouldn't exist, Akhenaten, the horizon of the Aten. Here, the temples are open to the sky, not enclosed in shadowy sanctuaries. The air hums with quiet change. This is a city built not for the gods of old, not for Amun or Osiris or Thoth, but for one god only, the Aten, the radiant disk of the sun. The man who ordered this break from centuries of tradition is Akhenaten. Born as Amenhotep IV, he began his reign like many others, young, noble, steeped in divine lineage. But before long, something in him turned. He banished the old gods, stripped the temples, and declared that only the Aten, the sun itself, was worthy of worship. He took a new name, Akhenaten, effective for the Aten. This was more than theology. It was a cultural rupture. The images of the divine changed. No longer gods with falcon heads or jackal faces, but a sun disk with rays ending in gentle hands. And Akhenaten himself, he was drawn unlike any other pharaoh. Elongated skull, wide hips, narrow limbs, soft features. Some have called it artistic revolution. Others whisper of illness, or even alien ancestry. But what's clear is that his reign defied expectations and made many enemies. He moved the capital from Thebes to this desolate patch of desert, forcing thousands to build a new city from scratch. Akhenaten rose in less than a decade. Limestone temples, palaces, homes aligned to the movement of the sun. The art of the court changed to more intimate, less rigid. Scenes of the royal family became tender, even vulnerable. Akhenaten and his queen, Nefertiti, were shown with their daughters under the rays of the Aten, kissing cheeks, cradling babies. A king portrayed as a father, not just a god. But beneath the sunlight, shadows grew. The priests of Amun, once powerful and wealthy, were now dispossessed. The people, told to forget a pantheon they had honored for generations, murmured in discomfort. And the empire, stretched thin by reform and religious tension, began to crack at the edges. Foreign alliances frayed, provinces rebelled. Letters to Akhenaten from distant commanders, discovered centuries later in the Amarna tablets, plead for aid that never came. Then, silence. Akhenaten died. How? No one knows. There are no records of illness, no inscriptions detailing his end. He may have been murdered. He may have succumbed to sickness. He may have simply faded. What followed was swift and decisive. The city was abandoned. The old gods returned. Temples to Amun were rebuilt. and Akhenaten's name was struck from monuments, chiseled out, erased, condemned. His successors, Smenkhkare, perhaps a brother or son, and then the boy king Tutankhamun, worked quickly to undo his legacy. The capital returned to Thebes. The worship of many gods resumed. Official records stopped speaking his name. For centuries, it was as though Akhenaten had never lived. But stones remember, and buried beneath sand and time, his city remained, strange, symmetrical, and unfinished. When archaeologists uncovered the city's remnants, they found hints of hurried departure. Tools left in place, rooms half-decorated, lives paused in motion. And in the art, Akhenaten still gazes skyward, bathed in the rays of his singular god. What drove him to reject the world his ancestors had embraced? Was it conviction, madness, a desire to centralize power under a new divine image, or something deeper, a sincere belief that truth had been misread for centuries? In this segment, we walk among broken columns and chipped reliefs, feeling the echo of a ruler who sought to reshape not just belief, but reality itself, and paid the price for daring too much, too fast. Imagine standing before a wall of rock, the entrance to a tomb sealed for more than 3,000 years. The air around you is still and hot, thick with the scent of sun-baked stone and ancient dust. Somewhere behind that wall is a life carefully packed into silence, wrapped, painted, gilded, and entombed. No footsteps have crossed its threshold in millennia, and yet everything inside is waiting. This is not just treasure, it is memory, belief, ritual. The process of burial in ancient Egypt was deeply symbolic, a fusion of religious conviction, practical craftsmanship, and a reverence for continuity. To open an untouched tomb is not only to uncover objects, but to step through the layers of a worldview that saw death not as an end, but as a long, perilous continuation. Let us go slowly. First, the entrance, often hidden, disguised, or buried entirely to deter looters. It might lie beneath a simple mound of sand or behind a collapsed shaft. When rediscovered, the stonework is usually rough, chipped by hurried hands, a seal placed not for permanence, but for secrecy. Breaking through that seal reveals the first chamber. It may be narrow and undecorated, a passageway meant to confuse intruders or guide the Ka, the spirit, on its journey. Dust coats every surface. The air is dry, still sterile from centuries of isolation. Even the smell is faint, dry and neutral, like old parchment. Further in, the walls begin to change. Now you see painted plaster, scenes of offering, of judgment, of rebirth. The deceased, perhaps a scribe, a noble, or a minor priest, is shown kneeling before Anubis, or sailing on the solar bark. These images were more than decoration. They were spells, living prayers, painted into permanence. In the burial chamber, the central focus is the sarcophagus, massive, carved from granite, alabaster, or wood overlaid in gold, sometimes shaped like the human form, sometimes more rectangular, but always sealed tight. Within it, the mummy lies wrapped in linen, each layer placed with care. Amulets tucked between folds, a scarab for the heart, an eye of Horus for protection, tiny figures of gods pressed near the feet. Surrounding the coffin, the tomb is crowded with offerings, clay jars of beer and bread, baskets of onions and garlic, dried meats wrapped in linen, not symbolic, real food, real drink. The belief was that these items would nourish the Ka in the afterlife. Nearby, wooden furniture sits neatly stacked, stools, beds, even folding chairs. There are boxes of cosmetics, jars of perfume, chests of linen robes, everything one might need to continue life beyond death. There are ushapti, 2 small figurines of workers, meant to magically spring to life and perform labor for the deceased in the afterlife. Sometimes there are hundreds, lined in rows, like a silent army. The tomb may include scrolls of the Book of the Dead, though not always. These were expensive. More often, key spells were written directly on the walls or the wrappings themselves. Instructions for navigating the duat, the underworld, where the soul would face trials and judgment. One room might house the canopic jars, containers for the liver, lungs, stomach, and intestines. Each watched over by one of the 4 sons of Horus, each sealed with resin and prayer. The silence in the tomb is heavy, not haunting exactly, but sacred. Time feels different here, measured not in hours, but in patience. Sometimes, even in unopened tombs, you'll find signs of life. A fingerprint left in wet plaster. A carved name scratched out by a rival. A child's toy placed quietly in the corner of a larger sarcophagus. Each object speaks not only of ritual, but of humanity, of mourning, of hope, of love. And then there are the unknowns. Tombs never opened, still resting beneath desert hills, waiting. What lies within them is not just gold or splendor. It's a preserved breath of another world, a sealed dream of immortality. In this segment, we don't pry or plunder. We observe, we imagine, we listen to the quiet and feel the weight of a culture that believed death could be tamed through preparation, that the soul's long journey deserved luggage, prayer, and poetry. Around 1200 BCE, the sun glints off pale sandstone and the Nile glows calmly in the distance. Palm trees whisper in the breeze, and white-robed servants step quietly through stone corridors. This is not the life of a common Egyptian, not a farmer, nor a scribe. You are in the sacred realm of a high priest. In ancient Thebes, priests were more than religious figures. They were administrators, landowners, astronomers, doctors, dream interpreters, pillars of both temple and state. And among them, the high priest of Amun held near royal power, sometimes even more. Your day begins before dawn. In a private chamber near Karnak Temple, you rise with assistants. Servants bring fresh water from sacred wells. You are shaved clean, scalp, chin, body, in preparation for purity. White linen robes are laid out, embroidered with gold thread. A necklace bearing the image of Amun rests on your chest. You are not merely dressing. You are preparing to become a vessel for the divine. Before the world stirs, you walk to the inner sanctuary. The temple is vast. Colonnades that echo your footsteps. Walls painted with ritual scenes. Ceilings so high they disappear into darkness. Incense curls softly in the air. You are not alone, but all speak in whispers. The daily temple ritual unfolds in precise steps: purification of the space, presentation of food offerings, lighting of lamps, recitation of hymns. Then, the most sacred act, unveiling and anointing the hidden statue of Amun. Only you, the high priest, may enter that final chamber. Only you may stand in the god's presence. You bathe the statue, dress it in fresh linens, adorn it with jewels. You offer it meat, bread, figs, wine. You fan away flies. You speak sacred words. The god is cared for like a king. But this isn't mere ceremony, it's politics. The Temple of Ammon owns enormous tracts of land, employs thousands, collects tribute from across Egypt. You, as its head, oversee it all. Grain flows through your granaries. Craftsmen work under your supervision. Governors listen to your counsel. Even pharaohs, especially in times of instability, court your favor. Some scholars have argued that during certain periods, the high priest of Ammon held more sway than the king himself. And yet, your life is not easy. You are bound by rules of purity, of diet. Your sons may inherit your station, but only if they to prove worthy. You are watched by your peers, your rivals, and the God you serve. One slip, one misstep in ritual, one lapse in accounting could bring accusations of impiety or corruption. In public, you maintain calm dignity. At feasts, you recite praises. In ceremonies. In private, perhaps, you consult star charts, interpret dreams, or oversee temple scribes copying sacred texts onto rolls of papyrus. Your wealth is considerable. Your home is large, your robes fine, your table full, but indulgence is frowned upon. You live as a servant of the divine, cloaked in reverence, not excess. Sometimes, these journeys are slow, marked by heat and ritual. You speak little, you observe much. You are a steward of continuity, of divine presence on earth. At night, you return to your quarters. Before sleep, you may offer private prayers, quiet words, to Ammon or to your own ancestors. You reflect on the day's rites, the temple's balance, the country's direction. You think in spans of dynasties, not days. In this final segment, we sit with quiet power, a man robed in both holiness and responsibility. We feel the weight of spiritual expectation, the tension of invisible politics, and the isolation that often accompanies elevation. It is a life rich in ceremony, but also in silence. And as we close this chapter, we step gently back from the colonnades of Thebes and into the dark comfort of now. And now, as we step away from the temples, the tombs, the labor camps, and the royal halls, let the stillness settle in. Ancient Egypt, for all its grandeur, was never just a story of gold masks and soaring pyramids. It was a land of contradictions, of splendor built on exhaustion, of sacred rituals shadowed by struggle, of quiet lives swallowed by sand and time. You've just wandered through the hot sun beside men hauling limestone blocks, their backs aching beneath history. You've drifted through the fragile reign of a pharaoh who dared to reshape the cosmos and paid for it with silence. You've stood in front of sealed tombs, unsure whether to step forward or retreat. And you've walked slowly in the soft white linen of a priest, your breath steady in the stone-cool air of Karnak. But now you are still. The Nile no longer flows behind your eyes. The incense fades, the chants quiet. The pyramid's weight is lifted from your shoulders, the priest's sandals set aside. What remains is not the noise of conquest or ceremony, but the gentle hum beneath it all, the rhythm of work and worship, of heat and harvest, of sunrise and burial and dreams. These stories, told softly, are not just for memory. They are for peace, for presence, for the slow drift into rest. So let the past lie still for now. Let the flicker of torchlight dim. Let your breath match the pulse of time as it once moved through sand, shadow, and sacred halls. Thank you for listening. Sleep well.